afternoon, whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the internet's most sophisticated wrestling podcast, discussing the weekly aspects of it all, right here on
The Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast.
Is up in the little pictures of the four of us. He totally looks like Vanilla Ice.
Oh, I like it. So,
Ice, baby.
Soul patch and everything.
Welcome, everybody, to the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast, the only podcast for talking about the greatest topics. And today we want to talk about a wonderful pay-per-view.
Are we supposed to get that close to our mic?
It helps sometimes.
Is this like the shorty balls?
Delicious dish.
no. So before we get on track here, I've relocated. I'm going off track before we get on track. I've relocated my desk, and about 30 minutes ago, I hadn't relocated my desk, and I was sitting there watching GCW with Christopher, and he was like, you should just do it right now while you have the time. And I'm like, somehow he convinced me that was a good idea. So I was wearing a Randy Orton shirt. Now, it's not important that I was wearing a Randy Orton shirt. It's just like, well, it's the first wrestling shirt I grabbed. I'm good to go. You know why I'm wearing a Bald Monkey shirt right now? Because
self-promotion.
Nowhere.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, I pulled it out. It came out of nowhere, and then I put it on. But no, so it's not self-promotion. I mean, but hey, merch, Bald Monkeys merch.
Merchandise.
Can we get some people
Merchandise.
I got a blue shirt on it.
But that being said,
merchandise.
the reason I had to put this shirt on is because I was sweating so badly that I had to emergency go downstairs and try to get myself to stop sweating so I wasn't just pouring sweat on this podcast.
That would have been awesome.
Aren't you in your own house that's air conditioned?
Yeah, but I've got one of those every house looks the same neighborhoods where you have a 2-story house and the AC on the second floor doesn't really work that well, and it's just a little bit too hot upstairs most of the time.
And you're fat.
Hey, easy now.
Listen, all I gotta say, Chris, is come wintertime, me and Chuck sitting in the house all comfortable, you're not gonna be comfortable.
To be honest, Jimmy, I still sweat in the winter. It kind of sucks.
I do too. I get it.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
Is Vanilla Ice really that cold in the winter?
Well,
Why do I look like Vanilla Ice? Where are these Vanilla Ice? Like what?
Look, in this little square up here, you look like Vanilla Ice to me.
Maybe if you're like an 85-year-old woman with cataracts.
Do I look like Vanilla Ice?
No.
Have you guys seen Vanilla Ice recently?
No, I don't actively go out and look for Vanilla Ice.
Hold on. Let me get...
The chat apparently says yes. I look like Vanilla Ice. So
that's
awesome. Here you go. So I look like
Love
Vanilla Ice.
So before we get into this pay-per-view, let's talk about 2 pay-per-views that some of us watched this weekend. One, which I believe is going to be considered the best pay-per-view of the year by lots of hardcore wrestling fans. And that is Talkin' Shop-A-Mania. It was incredible.
It was a car crash.
A purposeful car crash.
Yeah. It was their way of purposely making fun of everything they had to deal with over the last X amount of years with WWE. And it was brilliant. It was nonstop. Jimmy and I watched, and we had to mute ourselves from time to time because of how hard we were laughing. So, I mean, well done. I can't wait for the next one. That's all I'm going to say. Bravo.
Yeah. They said something about doing another one, and I think they're going to have a reason to do it because I think it was a hit, and there was lots of wrestlers that were watching it, and they were pushing it quite a bit. I mean, I think even Randy Orton, he messaged about it. He was like, I heard there's really
Dolph Ziggler and somebody else was pushing it really hard.
And deservingly so. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, just a spot that I'll bring up. Like, they have a Royal Rumble type match, and they have this wrestler. They have this. It was called it's like the Social Distance Royal or whatever. And they have this guy named Freight Train Jones moving the speed of slow, just walking out to the ring. He can barely get into the ring. And then he proceeds to throw about half of the people out of the ring, but they all like look at him, and then they're going to charge him. And he just like grabs them barely and just tosses him out and does this like 6 times in a row. It was wonderful.
It was ridiculous.
And my favorite spot of the night, they had maybe the worst hardcore match of all time, but it goes into a house and they bust into a room, and there's Brian Myers playing with wrestling action figures with 2 kids on the floor.
Oh my.
Amazing. Just an absolute amazing spot, because for those of you who don't know, him and Matt Cardona, they have a podcast about wrestling action figures. I mean, that's the whole thing. So
it's worth the 50. It's worth $15, and you get to own it forever.
Forever. Yeah. The other one that we watched was GCW, and that was just finished right before we started this. So we were trying to crush that as good as we could, and it was I don't know. It was all right. There was some of those guys.
They're fun. They're fun. Let's put it that way. They put on a really fun show. I think there was 3 matches that stand out to me. If anybody goes back and watches the Scramble, I thought had some good spots in it. I think Blake Christian and Trey Lamar, I think they were trying their damnedest to do something amazing, and it was almost there. But I think Deppen and James, remind me who fought Deppen, but it was like
I forgot his name. ACH.
No, ACH was against Janela.
That's right.
Deppen is referenced as the gatekeeper in GCW. He tends to fight a lot of new guys. He does a lot of opening matches, and it was a great opener. I think that was probably the best match of the show.
Yeah, it was a solid show all around. And they had the one thing is like they're in Indianapolis, like they're in like a park, right? And there are a few fans spread out here and there, and it's hard not to just be jealous. Like, oh my gosh, I want to go to a wrestling show.
So bad.
I want to see wrestling in front of my eyeballs.
Yeah.
And see some of these crazy stunts that these people are doing. And I know we're preaching to the choir. I know everybody that listens to all these wrestling podcasts, they want to do that, but that's not important. What is important is, but I will go back and reference GCW, because I believe GCW is kind of like the redo of the thing that we're talking about today, which is ECW. And in particular, we're talking about the pay-per-view ECW Heat Wave 1998. So as per usual, give me 1 to 3 words on what you thought about ECW Heat Wave 1998. I will start with Steven.
The Boss.
Oh, man. Entertaining.
Oh, man, entertaining. Hey, it works.
That's it.
Cool. I like it. Chuckles.
Absolute frickin' carnage.
Absolute frickin' carnage. As we expect from ECW, I'm sure. Christopher.
I wish I skipped. Oh, wait, that's too many.
No.
It's got to be something like that, though. It definitely ain't my style.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it was just...
Missed the mark.
I'm gonna go with car crash just because I think it fits it. I think it was a car crash.
Sure. And the three words I would go for is like after the peak. And what I mean by that is like there are so many moments like, and when it comes to ECW, like I know there are some iconic moments in ECW and there are iconic moments that happened afterwards, but like specifically, I would look at this pay-per-view as being, for me personally, after many of the iconic spots that I enjoy the most, because I remember watching early ECW when like Sabu first comes into the picture, and like his first match, you can find it on WWE Network too. Like his first match is against Taz, and like they wheel him out with like Silence of the Lambs type. Yeah. And that match is killer. It's wonderful. But like, when we look at the quality of the taping and the production and stuff like that, it's god awful. It's god awful. But ECW definitely had something going for it. And
this was the height, right? Let's set the stage a little bit for where we're at in wrestling history. We're at 1998. ECW is one of the hottest things going. Mm-hmm. There's a huge brawl going on between WWE, WCW, and ECW is interjecting themselves right in between it and basically calling them out on every chance they get. And Bischoff is basically sticking his middle finger up. I'm sorry, not Bischoff. Heyman is sticking his middle finger up to both Bischoff and Vince McMahon. So I think this moment in ECW history is probably one of their bigger memories and better memories because it goes down as one of the more popular pay-per-views that they've ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the crowd was amazing. Lit. Like out of this world crowd.
Here's the issue with ECW, right? When you have a wrestling program that is day in, day out, just off the rails, how do you actually deliver a halfway decent pay-per-view compared to the bigger product?
See, I don't think they had to. They didn't have to. And like in talking with Chris briefly about him enjoying it, but it just not being where he wanted it to be, I was like, no. I'm like, this is exactly what ECW was, what ECW did, and it fit perfectly. And like, yeah, that was 1998. It's 2020 right now. You might not remember all the stuff that led up to it, but like we always talk about, like interconnecting storylines. Yeah. It definitely had that leading up to it and going after it into their November pay-per-view. Like it had all of that. So it was typical ECW, which was just crazy, and it fit. It fit.
What's tough? Well, but what's tough for me is I remember being a kid at that time, and I wasn't watching ECW. I was watching. I wasn't watching it late night.
Really?
The ECW came in. I watched ECW backwards. I watched it when it was over. I watched it when it came in, it got folded in, and I went back and watched ECW and appreciated it at that point. So at this time, I
think a lot of people did it that way too.
Yeah. At this time, I'm watching the main two shows. Mm-hmm. And I'm literally doing what I'm doing today on Wednesday nights. I'm flipping back and forth depending on commercials or what I want to watch. What if I'm entertained or not?
Yeah.
So ECW wasn't even in the equation for me. So I think that's why going back and watching now, was it crazy? Yes. Was it fun? Sure. Could I feel myself getting into it though? Like getting into the storylines or being enthralled by what was going? I was just kind of like, it looks like a fun time. I would be a blast if I was there. But watching it on TV back now, I was just kind of like, meh.
I think Heyman has always understood the audience, though. In
Oh, yeah.
particular, he's always understood, and you could see it too. Like, how many jokes do we always make about just like the wrestling fan base in general? And we're definitely folded into that. We have plenty of a wrestling fan look. But did you look at the crowd in that pay-per-view? That was a wrestling crowd. And I mean that for all the good and all the not quite so good things about that crowd. But as we go into this first match, it's like, and even like the first two matches, the one thing that I want everybody to really think about is how they use women in like Attitude Era, like pay-per-views and ECW just in general. I mean, I guess in general, just in the Attitude Era, they were using them a certain way. And even going into the Ruthless Aggression era in WWE, they used women, in a very particular way. I'm not saying that it's always a pretty thing. And I think nowadays some people would look back on it and maybe consider it barbaric, but you can't argue the fact that it worked. So here we go into our first. Now, little disclaimer here. We all watch this through the WWE Network because that's the easiest way for us to watch it. There is a pre-show match that is not on the WWE Network.
Which I was annoyed by going back and looking because I realized that. I was like, oh, we missed the match.
Yeah,
So.
and that was probably, because I can't remember this. I'm like you. I watch this stuff like back forever ago. So most of my watching of ECW has been like binging on it through the WWE Network or the random video or DVD I ran across when I was a kid. I mean, heck, my parents, I shouldn't say my parents, my mother in particular definitely didn't want me watching wrestling during a certain time frame. And ECW, we're talking like, I mean, everybody who thinks The Rock is bad. I mean, The Rock was crazy back in the Attitude Era. I mean, the stuff that he would say, I mean, all it would take was my mom hearing one of those things and be like, yeah, you're never, ever watching wrestling again. Because the innuendo was like crazy. But ECW, they just took that to the extreme, I mean, yeah. So
pun intended.
Yes. Yeah. So here we are. The first match that we get to see is Just Incredible versus Jerry Lynn. And Just Incredible.
Hey, whoa.
What are we waiting for?
You totally missed.
Oh my God.
A certain someone walking out with the ECW champion. I mean, if that wasn't like,
I forgot. I talk about two spots, and actually, there's three.
Yeah.
So that's our first opening. Our opening, we got Joey Styles sitting in the ring, and you know what? God bless Joey Styles. I miss Joey Styles. I really like Joey Styles a lot. I think he is one of my favorite announcers. Although, for as many as I hate, there's so many that I love too. It's interesting when I think about that. It really is. There's not many that get lost in the middle to me. You either have it or you don't. And when you don't, I hate you. And when you have it, I love you. But so Joey Styles, and here comes Shane Douglas. And you guys will have to remind me of her name. I cannot remember her name as she comes out.
Francine.
Yeah, Francine. So here comes Francine
wearing very little,
nothing,
wearing
like see-through, like long nightgown. Ay. Man, if No Way Out had an opening, I mean, wow.
Yeah, No Way Out. It was just two women dressed a little scantily clad, and saying some things that have a little innuendo to them. Yeah, she wasn't wearing much. And again, this is how Paul Heyman understands his audience. This is how he understands, like, you look at the crowd, there's not many women to be seen. And now that has changed. That has changed nowadays. And with the like women's revolution and with, the independent scene and women being so much better at wrestling than back, because back then it was like, let's find a pretty face and we'll have her try to wrestle. Now it's we have wrestlers, women wrestlers. So there's a lot more women who watch wrestling nowadays for sure than from back then. Because back then there wasn't any, real women's wrestling to watch. There were some crazy moments, especially in ECW. Beulah, I mean, years before this, or maybe not years, but like earlier than this, has a crazy match, intergender match. And so they were still wrestling, but let's be honest, most of the women in wrestling at this point are there for the looks.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's gonna.
Yep.
Yes. We're just gonna keep going.
Making me laugh at chat. But so here they come, and Shane Douglas is basically going to be an announcer for the rest of the night, and I think he does pretty darn good. I think Shane, and I love him throughout the course of the pay-per-view, screaming at the refs, and again, it's like it's not very clean entertainment. I mean, there's plenty of cursing and there's plenty of crazy stuff going on.
I mean,
but it's kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, back then there's cursing.
And it's pay-per-view.
And it's pay-per-view.
That's something that pushes it along. And it's ECW, so they're pushing the edge.
Yeah, there was more cursing in a 5-minute segment over either one of these pay-per-views over the weekend than there was in that entire show back then.
Oh my goodness gracious, you ain't joking about that. And there was as much as they cursed in GCW, holy goodness gracious, Talk Shop Mania.
A lot more.
I mean,
a lot more. So,
I mean, can I quote something from Talk Shop Mania? Look at that huge dick.
Well,
there you go.
My virgin ears.
Watch Talk Shop Mania. You like my Pizza Hut cup? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Nice.
So first match we've got not Lance Storm, Just Incredible versus Jerry Lynn. Now, from an ECW standpoint, who's more iconic? I mean, there's a handful of people that are very iconic of ECW. And I would argue that Jerry Lynn is one of those people, specifically because of the matches that he was having with, guys like RVD and stuff like that. Those are some of the more iconic matches because those two, they meshed so well with each other. But just generally speaking, he's just an excellent wrestler. And he's coming into this match with a storyline going with Just Incredible, and this is kind of like the match that is going to end it all. Like whoever wins,
the end of the summer series.
And who's Jerry Lynn come out with? He comes out with nobody. He's by himself. But Just Incredible, he's got himself a full crew coming out here.
He's got a posse with him.
He's got Jason, that's his name. Jason.
Jason. It was Jason.
Nicole Bass and Chastity, which Chastity, of course, you look at her, great name. Paul Heyman knows his audience again. Very trashy, disheveled looking woman, obviously playing to the,
I wrote something down. I wrote something down. I wrote.
Here we go.
Probably
about Nicole Bass. Probably about Nicole Bass.
It is about Nicole Bass. So Joey Styles is great, right? He knows exactly how to throw a punch, basically, and he was taking like cheap shots left and right at WWE. And the two shots I remember from, I'm pretty sure the beginning, right in the first match, was Nicole Bass being bigger than China and from somewhere from Russia. I think that was the quote. And then, this is not an entertainment. This is wrestling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right away.
Right out the gate. He was like, and it was interesting to me because I'm thinking back and I'm like, man, they were just going at WWE like right out of the gate, like not pulling a punch at all.
But if you think about it, though, how has the wrestling environment today, and we are all active on Twitter, so I dare to say this, as positive of a community as some of the community is, how have we actually changed very much since then? There were still those ECW fans, those ECW fans were like, screw WWE, screw WCW, we're ECW. How is that any different from the people that watch AEW right now? I mean, that's what AEW fans are doing every single day, and I don't fret them for it. I mean, I think their like rabid fandom is what helps, keep AEW fresh and keep it in the spotlight for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, watching that pay-per-view, and I kind of want to go back and watch other 1998 pay-per-views now of the other promotions.
Yeah, right.
Just watching that, I want people to be like, this is not new. The, little jabs left and right that promotions are taking at each other has been going on since day one of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably go back to, the Mid-South wrestling, and, like old school wrestling, and there's always shots going to be taken. It's part of it. And let's throw back to yesterday in the pay-per-view, Talk Shop-A-Mania. At the beginning of the show, it's all in fun. Like, a lot of these guys do the shots because it's a cheap pop. Everyone's going to pop when Joey Styles starts talking about, bigger than China and not entertainment. So why not? I mean, everybody's going to pop when Cody keeps sitting there and going like this.
Yeah.
It's part of the industry. The idea that we sit here and we're going to pretend that this is new and that these people are awful people for what they're doing, and how dare you say something bad about WWE? How dare you say something bad about AEW or Impact or guys.
But it's always going to be there, and like it's so nice now that some of that stuff has come back, because for a long time, I mean, it was WWE, and that, yeah, you had Ring of Honor was there, and TNA and Impact was there, but it's not the same level that it is now. I feel like now you have two promotions that are fairly popular, that are high on people's watch lists. You have one in Impact that's on the rise. Now you hear a lot more of those jabs, and it's so nice to hear, because those are the things that you loved watching. That's what I loved watching as a kid, was watching WCW and have them reference WWE, and then watching WWE and have them reference WCW and ECW, having them reference both of them. Yeah. I mean, getting those little jabs in here and there is what makes these things interesting sometimes, because when you're on the top of the pyramid and there's no one near you, I mean,
it's boring.
It's a whole lot of the same old stuff.
There's nothing for us to argue about.
Yeah. It's true.
We don't know what to do if there's nothing to argue about.
But exactly like Jimmy said, what really has changed? It's just the promotions have changed, the times have changed, and some of the people have changed. That's about it.
I think the product's different, though. Don't you think the product's different now too? Like, we talk about how women were being utilized in the product back then,
and I would tie that into the times have changed. I would tie that into that. But yeah, the woman, the woman, the female side of it is 180% different than 1998.
So, back to the match itself. Now that we went on that rabbit hole, what'd y'all think of the match?
I thought it was the best match I saw the whole time.
I thought it was good. I thought Justin Credible did some really, really good stuff while he was in ECW. And I think it's forgotten when you look at his whole career, because I think some people don't even realize that he was in ECW. Like when you think about it.
See,
A lot of people only know him because of ECW, because
I think it's the other way.
so short.
And I would make that argument about Jerry Lynn and less about Just Incredible.
Jerry Lynn deserved a lot more than he got from the bigger promotions. That man was a workhorse everywhere,
great.
as long as you gave him a shot. Oh man, if you ever get a chance, go back, search him on YouTube, just watch anything he's been in, and I don't know if I've seen a match he's been in that hasn't been great, because he keeps it going. He's competitive. His moveset felt like it expanded every couple months anyway to add different things in. He really fed off who he was with. His stuff with RVD was amazing. So it just, Jerry Lynn was amazing. What are your thoughts on this, Jimmy?
I was gonna say I think it was easily the best match of the night. I think it's easy for the quote unquote hardcore ECW fans to overlook certain matches because they have some of the more iconic ECW stars in them. But did those matches really deliver? I don't think so. And I think it's interesting that if we reviewed this pay-per-view as ECW fans in 1998, I bet you we would have looked at it very differently than we do today. Today, we look at a guy like Jerry Lynn and we're giving him all the credit. I think that's why we all, have that opinion of him. And quite frankly, it's while it didn't get paid off as him as a wrestler, I mean, he is working hand in hand with AEW now, right? So, he's in the back, and it's a perfect place for him at this point in his career. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
And that there were two spots that I was like, holy shit. One was the Hurricanrana off the top through the table, and the other one was the tombstone off the top rope.
Oh my God, the tombstone off the top rope was wild.
I cringed because I was like, oh my God, how did someone not break their neck like doing that?
I think that's why I couldn't get into the whole pay-per-view. I feel like that first match was the main event. Like the spots in that match, the flow of it, there was so many different things going on. There was interference. The crowd was way into it. They were way up right at the beginning. Nicole
Bass got a crotch shot.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. Again, a little bit crazy. Definitely wouldn't fly in wrestling today, probably, but very entertaining. And yes, I'm pretty sure, again, Paul Heyman understands his audience. The crowd went wild for that.
Yeah.
But that's always been the criticism about the crowd, though, right? Is that ECW crowds are a bunch of sexist, bloodthirsty wrestling fans.
Correct.
And I would say that it's somewhat accurate. It's not totally accurate. I'm not saying people that love ECW. I love ECW. I don't consider myself to be very sexist. I don't consider myself to be
you're not very sexy.
Bloodthirsty. But it doesn't change the fact that I enjoy when they're paced out enough. I love a good hardcore match. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But this is all hardcore. So right out the gate, we're hardcore, and we continue to stay hardcore throughout the night.
Was there a table spot in every match? I feel like.
I don't remember one in the Candido match.
No, I don't remember that one either. I do know that, I guess, hey, we're transitioning to the second match, everybody. Chris Candido with Tammy Lynn Sitch against Lance Storm. Well, and then Tammy Lynn, though, but I love the name Tammy Lynn. I just think it's funny. I think it fit the character that she was trying to play. Again, we're stereotyping a little bit, but I mean, it's wrestling. That's what I think is great about wrestling, is that you can stereotype and that you can use all these things that we wouldn't deem appropriate but it's okay. It's fictional. It's wrestling. It's all right. It's for entertainment purposes. And if you really hate that gimmick because of that gimmick, maybe that gimmick's actually working.
Yeah. We were giving praise to Jerry Lynn about how underrated he was to his career. I have to say, the most underrated person I think out of all the history of me watching wrestling is Lance Storm. He deserves so much more he went to the dungeon, and growing up in the industry with Jericho, I believe if he would have got the same kind of push Jericho would have been, he would be a bigger star than Jericho is now. Had all the movability, he was athletic, he could be a monster heel, he could lead a faction. Like, he was the complete package and never given a shot more than just mid-card, and it's very upsetting. And
that being said, this match for me was a little stale. And I felt like it was a two-spot match. One actually being a legitimate spot that ended the match, and one being the
wardrobe malfunction.
The wardrobe malfunction spot.
I feel like with the outcome of the match, there was a lot of missed spots in the match. Like, a lot of it, you could tell a move would be done and somebody wouldn't react properly, and it's like their chemistry wasn't as good as they wanted it to be for a pay-per-view, especially for how they could have been. Who knows? But it was very, very flat by the end of it. Very upsetting.
3 segments so far on the pay-per-view. There's a female in every single segment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's again, it's using females. Minus the last match, because the last match they do use Nicole Bass, and they're not trying to sexualize Nicole Bass. They're trying to make her
there too.
Yeah, well, but I don't even know that they're trying to sexualize Chastity. Yes, they're women, they're coming out, but the biggest spot that they had with a woman in the Just Incredible Jerry Lynn match is probably Nicole Bass getting a low blow.
But they're part of the formula.
Sure.
Throughout the
Absolutely.
night, they're part of the formula until you get a little bit deeper into the show.
Well, once you start getting to your your main card A-lister guys that maybe don't need it. So the question is, are they using the women to boost up characters that maybe aren't quite as compelling to the crowd?
But I don't know, because I don't feel like the first couple matches needed it. The first matches had great wrestlers who were willing to do just about anything.
Yeah, but does 1998 ECW crowd, do they appreciate those wrestlers' characters? So that's probably it.
What they didn't know they had.
Do we care about Lance Storm and Chris Candido? I know we do.
If you put that in front of me now, those two in their prime, that's a stellar match.
Yeah.
And again, it's a different product right now. We appreciate wrestling a different way.
Well, see, but I always have this ongoing argument, and I'm not saying that I'm arguing with you guys about it, but I always argue this point that women's wrestling, it doesn't need to go to either extreme. So the critics, the hardcore critics, were always talking about, well, it's all in the one extreme. It's all just beautiful women that don't necessarily know how to wrestle, and they're not doing any wrestling. And then it goes to the other extreme of, we need to make sure that women's wrestlers are wrestling and being competitive and they're taken seriously. And my argument has always been, let them do what they want to do with their character. So if somebody gets into wrestling, well, yes, we expect them to be a halfway decent wrestler nowadays. Absolutely. But if that person wants to use their sex appeal as part of their character, a la Mandy Rose or somebody like that, then I think that that's a good thing. And I actually found that character of the Mandy Rose character to be quite refreshing because she was doing that, because she was coming out and being like, oh yeah, I'm hot and I know it, and you should know it too, type of a deal. I think that is a refreshing thing versus a lot of them that all come out like you need to take me seriously because I am a really, really good wrestler and I just want to be viewed as a really, really good wrestler, which I think is important, but not necessary.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the product that I was arguing, though. I'm more arguing for the idea that today we appreciate wrestling and the skill of wrestling a lot more as fans than I think we did back then as fans, where we were looking for more of the entertainment portion of it. The joke was, this is not entertainment, this is wrestling. To me, no, it actually was entertainment back then. But there was really good wrestling layered into it. But
Sure.
That's not what the crowd was looking for. The crowd was looking for blood, guts, chair
Tables,
shots,
chairs,
women,
ladders, barbed wire, 2x4s, whatever.
But today, yeah, Jimmy, I know you love that stuff. But at the same time, we appreciate really good athletic wrestling.
Yeah. But I think the one thing that Talking Shop-a-Mania reminded us about. Yeah, I saw.
No, come on, you have to say that. What came in the chat?
Okay. Yes, I have someone coming to my defense and saying if Fandango or Angel Garza can't exist, there can be sexy women wrestlers. Because Angel Garza, he's definitely part of his MO. He's good looking. He wants to look at himself in the mirror. Fandango and Tyler Breeze, those guys are like all about the looks and the goofiness, and that is good. Again, those are all perfect examples of what is good in wrestling that they don't always take advantage of enough. Yep. Because again, when we look at Talking Shop-a-Mania compared to wrestling nowadays, compared to ECW, like we're comparing everything together, we go too far into the extreme. It's all wrestling first, which is good, but when you push too much wrestling first, and then you have these networks like Fox and stuff that are like, well, we want you to present WWE like it is like actual fights, and we want it pushed as a sport. Well, okay, nobody's going to watch it because it's going to be boring if all you do is push a bunch of just good wrestling matches with no story and no humor layered in from time to time. It's not really that interesting, right?
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, story's been important from the very beginning.
We have to have a drinking game.
Well, yeah, I'm going to get drunk on water if we sit here and do a drinking game. Agua. Or is that vodka? Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, so...
Women, and we finally get to just a wrestling match, right?
Yeah. Mike Awesome, Masato Tanaka.
Mike Awesome, why wasn't he bigger in the States? Because...
Well, he had his opportunity, because remember, he goes and signs with WCW, but he had the ECW championship at the time. And that was very important that, they were afraid that he was going to do the whole Medusa thing and throw the belt away, and they couldn't let that happen. So they made sure that it didn't happen. But again, you have a whole list of people that are like this. And I think that there are people that are coming back to Impact that are dealing with the same thing, which is you don't want your britches to be too big when you get into some of these promotions. And that's 100% what happens. A guy like Mike Awesome is a pretty solid character, gets a really good push in ECW, gets a lot of respect within the industry, then gets signed to WCW where he disappears. And that is the story of so many people's lives that went from ECW up. I mean, who are the guys that ran through ECW that really went to a different brand and really made something of themselves?
The Dudley Boys.
The Dudley Boys, absolutely. Rob Van Dam did pretty good. Not as good as, I would argue, not as good as the Dudley Boys, though.
True.
Tommy Dreamer, people know him a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Dreamer's got the longevity.
Mick Foley.
Sure. Yeah.
Taz
even and definitely
I don't say Steve Austin because he didn't do the promos.
Well, Eddie Guerrero technically was on some ECW, and so was Chris Benoit.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at some of the guys with the longevity that were there for a long time, that really grinded it out, and then they went somewhere, like I don't look at Taz and say, oh yeah, Taz WWE. I look at Taz and say, Taz ECW. And the same thing with Tommy Dreamer. You know, Tommy Dreamer, he was it's like, yeah, he had a little bit of, fandom, but it's all coming from ECW, because once ECW doesn't exist, where are those ECW fans aren't going to just stop watching wrestling? It's what they like. So they're going to be there. But yeah, I mean, some of those guys, I mean, and even guys like that we'll see later on, like the Bam Bam Bigelows and stuff like that, like they've been in different promotions, but to me, ECW was always like, that's where I remember these guys at. Yeah. I mean, even for me, as big as the Dudley Boys were in WWE, I love the degenerate Dudley Boys of ECW. Everybody hated them. Everybody. Mm-hmm. They were some of the best heels ever. What's that?
When they did leave ECW, they should have pulled the whole faction idea with them, because the Dudley's faction was amazing.
Yeah.
And later on the night, Big Dick Dudley just says it all.
The best. But so, yeah, I mean, so Masato Tanaka defeats Mike Awesome. And again,
chair to the head, man.
Woo. Dude, what about Mike Awesome almost breaking his neck, going underneath the rail on the one side, and like you could see, dude, when they got the camera up to him, he was hurting. That was one of a few head issues that night that people like definitely had a concussion from.
Well, yeah, after that spot, they go, "There's no pad on this floor."
No.
You're just like, no. Oh, it just the chair shots in that match alone were. They got the extreme into that match, and it was kind of brutal.
That was stiff. It was a stiff match.
Strictly speaking, pretty average ECW match. You know, it's what you come to expect. You know, I don't know that there's not much compelling about many ECW matches. It's always just, how are we pushing it? How are we pushing the limit? I mean, you even think about, like, you go back and watch like Mick Foley versus Terry Funk, and like the I'm gonna set him on fire match or whatever, like, and how not great that match is. But that whole crescendo of like burning him at the end, like, you know, it works.
Yeah. I think looking back at some of this stuff, I really like the fact that ECW was bringing in and taking chances or working with some of the biggest names in wrestling in other parts of the world at that time. And sure. I think that was one of the other reasons why I kind of wanted to, why I nominated this one, you know, to be voted on, because you got to see 3 pretty big names from Japan in this pay-per-view.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's like you take a little dabble of what ECW was doing, take a little dabble of what WWE used to do and WCW used to do, and you kind of have AEW, and you kind of have a little bit of what Impact's doing. It's like it's weird. It's this recycling of the world that we're at right now.
Yep.
But man, I take that match. This specific match was the one where I think I was messaging Chuck and was like,
"Yep,
I don't know if I'm into this. Like I just don't know. Like again, you put that match today, people will be flipping out on social media about the chair shots, the stiff shots, the bumps they had to take. People would say it was the most brutal match they've seen in years.
And then the Taz Bam Bam Bigelow match.
Yeah, we're not even there yet.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like it's just.
And those people aren't watching CZW.
No, not at all.
Negative.
Hey, Chris, you should go to a CZW event. I think you.
We should go to a CZW
100%.
event. Actually, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm all for
Let's
it.
do it. I'm all for it too. Just make sure you don't eat too much before you watch some of the matches, because those matches get brutal.
You can't tell me not to eat. That just
That doesn't work for Christopher.
doesn't work.
He should be the fattest of all of us. It's a travesty.
But I'm not.
It's true.
So what do we think of Rob Van Dam and Sabu, versus Hayabusa and Shinzaki? Hope I didn't butcher any of those names. I will say this.
Rob Van Dam, you got it.
I love the
Sabu, you got that one
you
right.
dick. No, I really enjoyed like the little promo that they cut before that match even happened, like in the back, and just how egotistical Rob Van Dam is. I just love the character. No, but now his character is more like, I'm high all the time, and I think my woman's really sexy, and she can flaunt her skin as much as she wants to, but just don't piss her off, because then I'm gonna have to do something about it. Yeah,
she's got a great face, Sammy Callahan. Yeah.
Well, wonderful.
I gotta. We talked about this, I think, before we hit record, but Sabu. I just need to understand, because from the promo, like you said, to the very end of the match, is Sabu in character at all times? Is that just who he is? But wait, is that just who he is, or is that a character?
That's who he is.
I think that's who he is.
Okay.
Like, if
also,
you watch ECW from the beginning of when he came in, and even when he did stuff in WWE, I mean, the dude is just out there. He's mental. I mean, I picture him walking through the grocery store and just pointing up at the ceiling like every once in a while.
He's shopping and he's just like,
I really enjoyed the match as a whole. It had some slower spots and it had some big spots. But my biggest takeaway is that fucking whistle was annoying as hell. Oh my God.
Loved it.
Whistle.
Loved it.
I couldn't. It reminded me of watching it on replay at home when I was a kid and going, I just want to shove the whistle down his effing throat.
God, his character is so good, though.
It is. It is. But I was like, oh my God, stop with the fucking whistle.
Right. Oh my God.
And by the way, Bill Alfonso is the one, by the way, that had the match with Beulah McGillicuddy, where and he bladed himself way too deep. It is a bloodbath of a match, and when it's over, everybody's excited that Beulah McGillicuddy won, but she is just head to toe covered in blood. It is absolutely insane. One of the most insane matches ever. But dude, he is one of the best, like, I just hate him characters ever. Mm-hmm. He's very annoying. He plays that character very well.
Yep.
And you know what? Another thing, and this goes way back in ECW's day, but I always, like, every now and then on Twitter, they always talk about, who's the best valet of all time or who's the best manager of all time. and I always and gosh, I forget his name. I always talk about the guy who was it like the Destroyers. I think their name was like the Destroyers. They were just like two big guys that wore masks. Like that was it. Like old school. The guy who used to bring. I was like, it was Hunter Robbins the Third, I believe is his name. This is you gotta go way back. You gotta go way back in ECW. But like,
anybody know what is he talking about?
I'm telling you.
I don't remember that.
I will send it to you guys. It's Hunter Robbins the Third, I believe. And yeah, this guy, he used to come out with like this group called like the Destroyers, and they just like wore like, black spandex and wore like masks. Like that was it. Like very bare bones. But like, God, ECW, I just think over and over and over again, though, the point I'm trying to make is they've got so many like good, solid characters that didn't need to do a lick of wrestling to be good characters. I mean, Paul Heyman, Paulie is one of those,
who doesn't even show up like the whole night.
Yeah.
Well, you saw him one time all the way to the back.
At that point, though, he didn't need to. In the earlier days of ECW,
he come out there with that freaking bag phone and
the best. The best.
I agree with Steve. I really enjoyed this match. This was the match I think I was looking most forward to watching, just because of who it had in it. I loved the interaction between Van Dam and Sabu because they were tag team champions, but they were not on the same page. I mean,
they did not like each other.
And you can tell by how the match ended.
The pinfalls, when they would shove each other out of the way to pin somebody, was great.
Exactly. I mean, and like, the one spot that I remember that you can hear the whole crowd get on is when I think it was Hayabusa comes off the rope on like right in front of the camera, and it looked like he was going to try to do, I don't know, like a clothesline or something, but him and Van Dam screwed it up, and like the whole crowd like just got on him at that point. But I mean, later on in the match, I mean, him and Shinzaki completely redeemed themselves. I mean, watching the two of them work in the ring was like amazing. Just to see how. I mean, Hayabusa was like one of the first people to do like a 450 off the top rope. And to like see him do it there with such ease, and to see him do some of those things off the middle rope, and unfortunately, like that flip off the middle rope that he does is how, he got really injured. And if you can go back there's a video of it, and I mean, man, it's amazing how many things happen in a wrestling ring and they just go right, and that one time out of 100 that something goes wrong, oof. Like when that happened, like, and his head hit down square on the mat, I mean, it's like, I watched it twice and I was like, that's it, I'm good. But the match was, I mean, the table spots were awesome, even though they couldn't get the table to work at first because the one leg had already broken off and everything, and they couldn't get it to go up, and the ref just like, they get another one in the ring and they throw that one out. I mean, the chair shot that Rob Van Dam gave to I think it was Hayabusa on the top rope in the corner when what's his name was holding it for him. The
Van Daminator when he jumped in.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, there was a no sell in the match at some point, and the commentators just go, "He just must not have hit him that hard." And it's just like, okay. Like that's perfect. That's how you run with a no sell. Just lay it off.
Yeah, it's when they I think it was Van Dam or Sabu hit him, and he like somebody jumped back up like right away, and like
Shinzaki.
He did a double team, and I'm like, he just got smoked with.
Yep, he got right back up.
What happened there?
It was good.
And Chuck, you're absolutely wrong, because everything goes wrong when Sabu's in a ring.
Wow.
Nothing goes right. But that's how Sabu wrestles.
Yeah.
Completely off the rails, and that's what makes it look cool when Sabu's in the ring. He's jumping, he flips, he's jumping over here. Oh, I dropped the chair and I got to get another chair. Fuck you, I'm going to get my chair. Like
Sabu is he's like a 6-year-old playing a wrestling video game for the first time and just mashing buttons. That's how Sabu wrestles.
That spot. His dive out of the ring, off the chair, off the rope, when he went into the crowd on top of all them, was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It scares me every time.
Sabu does not care. One of the first things I seen Sabu do was when he cut his arm on that barbed wire, then he stapled it together and duct taped it to finish the match. The guy doesn't care.
Ugh, that match.
Game.
That was the barbed wire match with Terry Funk. Oh my goodness gracious! That match is.
Oh, that was the first Sabu match I'd ever seen.
Sabu.
Yeah.
This was a tame match for Sabu.
Well, the thing, but yeah, I mean, we were talking about that earlier because we're watching GCW, and one of the things that we got annoyed at, and it was just in the moment, just a quick thing, is the setup for a spot. You know, when you have 4 guys suddenly all huddle around each other and they're sitting there not doing anything, how annoying that spot is. But it's easy to take that spot out with good production, like you just like don't have the camera pointing on it or whatever. But the great thing about a guy like Sabu is he just didn't. I mean, if nobody's there but the one guy, I'm not waiting on him. I'm going. If I miss him totally, it's okay. I miss him totally because I'm reckless Sabu, and that's how. And earlier, I didn't say this, but earlier when you talked about like, you know, is that the way that Sabu is, or is that just his character or whatever? And this is back in the day when there are still a handful of wrestlers that believe so much in kayfabe that they just embrace who they are. And Sabu is 100% one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to beat the hell out of everybody.
Him and the Iron Sheik. I feel like Sabu is like a more athletic Iron Sheik, where he's just.
Well, in the match, they said he really takes after his uncle, the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
The best part was 3 out of the 4 guys are wrestling in their pajamas. I mean, you can't get any better than that.
They do look comfy.
They do.
Always.
So another good one. I mean, another good match. You guys pointed it out. I like the spot at the end where Sabu basically like shoulder blocks Rob Van Dam off the cover.
Yeah, after the frog splash, Sabu just was like, nope.
This is my pin.
And Van Dam's just like,
yeah, man.
okay.
Damn. Yeah. So our next match then is a Falls Count Anywhere match for the FTW Heavyweight Championship. And you know what? One of my favorite versions of the FTW Championship belt, because like no, I mean, it's not just that. It's like so for instance, one of the more iconic ones is definitely the strap that they've got in AEW. It's very similar, where it says FTW really big, but there was the version of it that said FTW really small at the top and then looked more like a classical championship belt. And I'm fairly certain that was the one that he had on. I could be wrong about that. And I love that belt. In fact, I love that belt so much, I'd like to get a version to put it on the wall behind me because that belt is freaking sweet.
Is that what you're going to do with the wall behind you? Put belts up?
Oh, I will inevitably do something with the wall behind me. I'm not sure yet. Again, just moved into this room for recording, so it's a work in progress.
Match.
I could be like Chuckles and put bald monkeys behind me. Go buy merch. Go buy merch.
Merch.
Tapestry, 3 sizes. You can get it.
Merchandise.
I like this match because it's kind of relevant to what's going on today with the FTW Championship. Yeah. And it was nice because this was only shortly after Taz was like, yep, I'm the FTW champion. Here we go. I got my belt right here. I don't care what the hell you guys think. I'm the champion. So it was like right at the beginning of when it started. And you know, we've been talking amongst ourselves in our text chat and one of the things that we were bringing up was music. And I mean, expletive F word, when Taz's music hit, I was like, yeah! I totally forgot how much I loved his freaking theme music.
Oh,
that
man.
like when it hit and the lights are out and he just comes out with like the torn like a towel on his head. I was like, I fucking love this shit. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome, and it might go on my list for theme music. But anyway,
I hope it does. I hope it does because I already know that me and Chris are gonna have at least one double, and then the rest of his one of his songs is garbage, and then the other one is very Chris.
But I really liked the match. I mean, I always loved Bam Bam Bigelow and Taz. Yeah. I mean, this match shows how strong Taz was for not so big of a guy.
On Bam Bam.
Oh, I mean, like some of the chair shots between the two of them, the fighting in the crowd, the back and forth when Bam Bam picks up the bicycle rack and just tosses it right at Taz's head, and like it just knocks him right in the face. I mean,
out of him.
I really, really enjoyed the match. Like it was so nice to go back and watch it and just like see all of this stuff again, because in the regular stuff that we watch, you know, week to week, you don't see anything. I mean, besides COVID, but whatever. You don't see this stuff anymore, and it's so, for me, it was so refreshing to see it.
Was I the only one that there's like a camera shot of Taz right before this match happens, and I'm like, oh my god, him and Brian Cage are the same damn person. Yeah. Like I just saw him in the ring, and I was thinking, dude, he reminds me of him. He reminds me of Cage.
That intensity he has, I think that's one reason they put him with Cage, is try to help him build off of that. The match,
I don't know if that's a good thing, obviously, to build basically the exact same character.
He's a bigger version.
There are a lot of ECW fans that are big AEW fans. Yeah. So
one of my favorite spots in the match is when they're fighting in the crowd and Bam Bam goes to shove him into the chairs and he slips himself. He falls like face plants on the floor, and the announcers are going, the floors get really wet from people spilling beer and they get sticky, and sometimes you just fall. And I'm just like,
it's accurate.
The announcers made the night. The announcers were amazing throughout the whole thing. It was great. The match was a car crash. It had probably the biggest spot of the night with him crashing through the ramp. Coming
the ramp, yeah.
But just them digging back out of it was great. And then Taz telling him before the match, you're going to tap out. And
I hated the ending.
It was too quick. But it was like he like puts the submission on and he like taps. Well, no, but this is where we got the peak of the announcing, because Shane Douglas was so about Bam Bam Bigelow beating Taz that he lost his damn mind when Bam Bam Bigelow lost the match.
That was the ongoing story there. That was Taz versus Shane Douglas for the belt. Bam Bam, I think it was a triple threat at one point where Shane Douglas ended up getting hurt in his elbow or something because of Taz with Bam Bam.
So,
yeah.
Taz was trying to get even on Bam Bam. That was his whole match. Oh, great. It was beautiful.
Hated, and I love at the end as Bam Bam's trying to reach for the rope, and Douglas is up. He was trying to reach for the rope. Come on. He was right there.
Is wonderful.
Just it proves that a good announcer and a good heel announcer and a good face announcer really make a good match.
100%.
And then occasionally it just flips back to the table, and so we can see a scantily clad woman. That's really the only reason that it would ever. I'm seeing Chuckles dancing right there, and I'm very uncomfortable all of a sudden.
If you gotta
Clip that.
We'll be right back music on the Twitch stream with the elevator music, and his head goes.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
I think that's a wonderful idea. We need to make that happen. And just as long as he's
Chris is
not,
writing it down.
I just don't think I can handle Chuck being in like a very like no show outfit like that dancing around. It's very disturbing to my brain.
I couldn't do that. No. No. I'd rather wear Sabu's pajama pants.
So I think we have officially got the new flirting GIF for people because that's what the request is in the chat.
Nice. Like it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so Bam Bam taps out, and it's the quickest tap out to an amazing match that really shouldn't have it, and
kind of ruins it. Yeah,
ruins
a little bit.
Ruins the match a little bit. Ruins a good match, but still, still a great spot with the ramp. The ramp spot to me.
We were watching it just as the one pay-per-view. Sometimes you need a crappy finish, story going, especially if Douglas is hurt. You want to prolong things before you have that.
It's a great story.
Great storyline. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great story. Him and Taz were amazing story.
And I think that helped push Taz for other promotions too, because it showed his other promotions. Bam Bam had been in New Japan. He'd been in WCW, been in WWE. People know him, and when you can put on a match like that, you're compelling. You look strong. You look tough, even when you are a smaller person. I think they took that match, and that's when they were like, okay, let's put him with Kurt Angle and see what happens on his first match in. So. Yeah.
So now can we move on to the entrances that make The Undertaker look like the fastest person in the world? I swear I was watching this and I was like, oh my God, this is going on forever. Now for the latter people, the Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman and the Spike Dudley, it was painful. It was not painful for the Dudleys. Because let's be honest, Big Dick Dudley is
Big Dick Dudley.
He's
magical on the mic.
It's just I love, again, we go back to the heel and the face announcers and Styles just refusing to put them over.
Oh yeah.
When
he's
the
like,
Dudley
I'm not even
boys,
gonna talk.
He goes, I hate these guys. And he says expletive. I hate these guys. So I'm not saying anything about them. I know you. I can hear you. I'm not talking about them.
Yep.
Love it. Like that to me. Again, like I find myself more and more just looking at these little things and going, man, I don't realize how great that was when I was a kid probably. As a kid, I probably just ignored the fact that he was evoking all that emotion and passing it right on to me. Because I'm sure watching, if I ever watch back, I was like, yeah, they're assholes. Yeah.
All I'm saying, Chris, is for somebody who didn't really enjoy this pay-per-view because it wasn't his thing, you seem really into it.
I'm putting on a good face, man. I don't want to sit here and bash it. It was good. It was just if I had to go back and watch something, if you tell me if someone has to bash it. No, we're not here to bash stuff. We're here to like talk through it and just analyze what was good about it
warranted
and what didn't work.
If it's WrestleMania 1.
It didn't work. But no, here's the thing. I won't go back and watch that again. It's not something that I'd go back and watch. If you told me to go back and watch No Way Out, I'll watch it. I'll go back and watch No Way Out 2004 again.
Are you going to just sit there and just rewatch the boyfriend versus girlfriend blindfold match? The peak of that show? It's funny to me how everything that I really love, Chris really hates in wrestling. It's this really interesting thing that we got going on this podcast.
Yeah. Double stuffed Oreos, correct. Single stuffed Oreos, incorrect. That's the way it works.
Agreed.
It's just because y'all aren't really friends.
But to be fair, it is nice to have a single stuffer on a double stuff Oreo podcast, apparently.
got weird. Can we get to the match?
Really weird. Yeah. Your wording of that.
Your wording just made me feel a little uncomfortable. The chat's uncomfortable. We need to move forward.
Is the chat's loving single stuff right now? So I don't know what you're talking.
The chat's trolling. Leave the chat out of this.
It's not trolling. The chat is not trolling.
Oh, I really got to get my Twitch set up so I can watch this chat next time.
Cheers for single stuff is the chat. They're just trolling.
Oh.
It's okay. All right, we get to the ring. Finally, that's how long the entrance was. We just talked through how long the entrance was. It was us trying to make you feel like
and Big Dick Dudley he introduces every single person
and not laugh
and every single person in the Dudley Boys for their match, and it's magical. It's magical how when you don't have a censor and you can just start like, again, I can't help but think of yesterday when we watched Talkin' Shop-A-Mania. Some of the stuff that they were saying as those guys were going out was absolutely crazy. But Gallows and Anderson as announcers, I mean, they could joke and they could poke fun at somebody and they were still putting them over because it was so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is exactly what Big Dick Dudley is doing. He is just putting over everybody, and it's hysterical. And even though the crowd hates the Dudley Boys, like kayfabe hates them, they love every single second of the introductions.
Hey, the Dudleys hated them too.
I really want a Big Dick Dudley shirt now.
Oh, if
I
you
bet you
want
do, Panama.
Where are you gonna wear that at?
Yeah.
On the podcast?
I'll wear it to work.
Oh, all right.
All right.
We're working remote, so.
Oh, boo.
Boo. There you go.
I would wear it into work because why not? I mean,
what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
His wife goes, "Take that shirt off." Okay, I'm sorry.
Going along with the whistle theme earlier, how much I hated the whistle.
So many gifts are going to be made from this.
I then remembered how much I despised Gertner when he's in the ring with them, and his with his neck brace
and a bow tie on,
and oh God, I was like, God, I hate you. 22 years later, bro. Yes.
That's when you know a gimmick works, right, Jimmy?
Oh yeah, it was.
Perfect.
It's perfect.
When it's
I still hate him.
You still hate him? That's when you know a gimmick works.
Still hate him.
And it was a great. I mean, the funny part is like they didn't need him.
No.
Like Bubba was there, and he could have been the talker in that group forever. But he just added another layer to them, which made them even more heelish.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized I've been talking this whole time and then talking about the wrong person.
I know.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Why didn't you correct me, man?
I just like seeing you be wrong sometimes, over and over and over again.
Good storyline.
Continue. You don't have to stop on the count of me. I'm just
Jimmy's just gonna sit there and sulk for a while, so we can keep going.
Oh, but when Dreamer and
you can edit it out.
Yeah, you can edit that out. When Dreamer,
we talked about it for a long time. I can't edit it out.
Just insert
edit yourself out.
Yeah, just insert bleeps every time you say the wrong name.
See, ladies and gentlemen, this is what they love about roundtables that they don't get when they interview wrestlers. They love the fact that they just get to just trash on me all the time.
We do it every time when the wrestler picks double stuff.
I'm sorry.
At the end.
They can trash on you when they're interviewing somebody else. It's not hard to do.
Yeah. We throw you under the bus.
But then you don't get to see me react to it, though. That's the thing.
That is true.
I just need to listen to you go crazy. I have a whole podcast that I can listen to just you going crazy.
And then you got to follow it up with the one where he doesn't say nothing at all, and that's just beautiful.
And the one where he talks to himself the entire time.
That's the one.
Episode 4, maybe?
I think it's 3.
I'll send a link out.
It's somewhere around
No,
there. Yeah.
don't send a link out because that idiot did that the other day. That guy, he goes, hey, make sure you listen to the podcast. And he puts a link up for it's the first time I've ever clicked one of his links, right? I'll retweet his stuff. And before I retweeted this one, I'm like, let me click this link. And it goes, and I'm like, oh my God. This is the episode where I'm talking to myself. And I send him a message immediately. I'm like, hey, idiot, did you do that on purpose? And he's like, maybe.
We got to get that to be like our most viewed episode. For us.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
We can make that happen.
I wish.
No. Let's not
People
make
out there
that
at the
happen.
Twitch channel and everything, go give it a listen. Give us some comments. Give us some feedback. Yeah.
Just leave it on.
Yeah.
Just leave it on replay. You don't have to watch it. Just leave it in the background so the numbers go up.
I apologize, everybody, for miss talking about who in the Dudley clan was actually doing all of the talking.
It's okay. I enjoyed you saying Big Dick Dudley over and over again.
We were just counting how many times you could say Big Dick Dudley.
I just really wanted to say Big Dick Dudley.
I mean, he did talk. So you were right.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Mostly.
You did talk. But I mean, for me, this match kind of fell short for me. Out of all the matches on the card, I was like, I was excited to see it, and there was one spot that I really liked was when all four corners were in the tree of woe, and they all got chair shots or kick to the face. I forget if everybody. I don't know. It was something like that.
The ref joined in too.
Yeah, the ref joined in for the fourth. That was, out of everything that happened, that and New Jack coming in at the end were the two things I remembered.
When he hit that stop sign.
Yep.
Bang. Great.
It was
the shopping cart and threw it at somebody else too.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, he threw the shopping cart in. It went flying into the corner.
Who did it hit? It hit somebody in the corner.
It hit the guy who ran in and hit him with the guitar.
It hit him hard.
No, because he hit with the guitar too.
It just it felt like the go home main event at a house show when he came out at the end.
It was the go home happy.
Yeah.
It sended everybody home happy.
Yeah.
As a match, meh. I don't know, Jimmy. What do you think about Big Dick Dudley?
I hate all of you. I don't even know why I do a podcast with you guys anymore. My favorite thing in the match, it was actually before the match happened, and it was just because it just made me think about some of these old guys that have been in wrestling for so long and have been in extreme wrestling for so long and have bladed for so long and stuff like that, that they've got so much scar tissue. And the thing about scar tissue is it bleeds very easily. So you always see in MMA and stuff like that, guys will actually get surgery to get scar tissue taken out so that they don't bleed as easily. And you've got Sandman who opens up a beer at the very beginning, chugs it, then smashes his head 2 times, the very first beer can, and then he's just busted open.
Oh, yeah.
He's just bleeding all over the place the rest of the match.
I love it when Spike did it because Spike goes.
But that fits the character for sure.
Spike looks so young, man. He looks so young in this match.
They all do.
Well, yeah, but he looks like he looked like he was 16 years old.
Probably was.
No.
Oh, get out of here.
He just
Crazy.
looks young. He's probably old. I don't know. You probably figure out Spike Dudley. When was Spike Dudley born?
Where's Wikipedia?
1970. Spike Dudley's born.
So he was 28 at that time.
Yeah.
Wow. Dang, yeah, he looked a lot younger than 28.
So, yeah, the match was, for lack of a better term.
No, I agree with Christopher. I think it is a situation where here are all your main people. Here is what you're waiting for. It's like when you go to a WWE show nowadays, well, at least it used to be this way. Like you would go to a SmackDown show, and they would have 205 Live after it, but then they'd say, but after that, we're having this really crazy match with all these A-listers so that they can all get in the ring and then they all can do their finisher, and so they can try to keep people at that show. Well,
It's
that's
like,
kind of what this match feels like.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, you guys were talking about Spike looking young. Bubba was in his larger stage of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as watching him throughout his career, it's crazy to me how he had like a body transformation throughout his career, where he was bigger some years, he was leaner other years. It's interesting how wrestlers sometimes just get into different shapes, for lack of a better term, where they're sometimes sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're lean. Like I feel like
the Big Show is the same way.
Big Show when he first started, and then he got like bigger. But it's weird, wrestlers. I mean, and it's tough because you're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Jinder Mahal, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, Chad, look, Drew McIntyre. We talk about Jinder Mahal, but Drew McIntyre back then was like,
he was a real frail, like heavyweight looking guy. Now he's
yeah.
I remember the first time we saw him when he came back to NXT. Remember we were watching NXT and I was like, oh my God, Chris, Drew McIntyre has become a monster. He is a monster.
Jimmy immediately called out that Drew McIntyre would be world champion when he first came into NXT. He was like, Vince McMahon is going to get this guy with a title belt around his waist as soon as possible.
Pretty much.
And minus an injury.
It's pretty much what happened, yeah. Yeah, and now they love putting their titles on big men, and one of them makes sense and one of them doesn't. But that's neither here nor there. Grades! Let's give it a grade. A through F. Let's start with Christopher, because Christopher clearly didn't like it as much as the rest of us.
A through F?
That's the grading scale.
Did we do numbers last time?
We did numbers last time, didn't we?
Oh, he can change it up.
1 through 10.
Okay.
Yeah, but if he keeps changing it up, how am I supposed to keep
0 through 10? You don't. It's a pot.
How many creamy cramers? Yes. How many creamy cramers?
How many creamy cramers?
How many out of 5? How many creamy cramers? And wait a second. Is having more creamy cramers a bad thing or a
I know,
good
which
thing?
is which.
You don't want too much cream, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. Is it the lower number or the higher number?
Well, so on the creamy cramers scale, more creamy cramers. We're going to say that more creamy cramers is better. Okay. So how many creamy cramers? Where 1 or 0 would be the least amount of creamy cramers, means it's not good, and 10 creamy cramers means that it's just like it's chock full of creamy cramer.
Damn.
Chock full of Kramer.
Okay,
T-shirt.
That is a
I kind of want to give you a letter grade now just to piss you off.
That will make me mad.
I'm gonna give it 7. A 7 creamy Kramer out of 10.
I'm shocked. Call me shocked.
I am.
That is way more creamy Kramer than I thought I was gonna get from you.
And again,
I'm gonna give it
just because it's something that not necessarily is my favorite type of wrestling doesn't mean it wasn't entertaining. I think it was entertaining. I watched it. I got to admit, there were moments where I wasn't paying attention. I found other things to do, and to me, that's why it started lowering on the scale. My eyes did not come off of what I watched yesterday on a pay-per-view, and to me, that makes something entertaining, and that makes it get a higher score. This, while I was definitely watching the first match, some of the second match, some of the Bam Bam Taz match, there was other matches where I wasn't into it. Even the last match, I don't remember what happened for half of it. You guys talked through it. I know kind of what happened, but Wasn't my cup of tea.
Okay, so if this one gets a 7 out of 10,
We have to adjust
there's no
his
way I'll
creamy.
get it.
We have to adjust his creamy Kramer score. I think he said 7, and I don't think that makes any sense because all of a sudden
it's way
that makes our ranking of this, I think, a lot more difficult. Would you
I
guys
know. Yeah.
Because I was going to give it a 6. So there's no way out like a 14 out of 10 for you? Is that what's going on?
Whatever.
You are the people that made the scoring system.
That's true.
He
Whatever.
just doesn't understand how much a creamy Kramer is.
I am the judge from Russia, screwing everything up. Just deal with it and give the damn scores.
I give it 6 creamy creamers.
It means
It had
nothing.
moments that were good.
It
It
means
had moments that were
everything.
good, but it was not the greatest pay-per-view ECW has done. It still left you wanting more at certain areas, and it could have been more of that car crash moments that ECW was known for. Overall, it's an entertaining pay-per-view. It's something worth watching. They wasted a lot of time, like you said earlier, on the entrances for the last match. It's like they cut stuff short, and they're like, oh, crap, we need to make up time, and we don't have another match kind of thing. It was a solid pay-per-view, but nothing more than a 6.
This did go down as one of like their best.
You had your time to speak.
This is rated by numerous places as the best ECW pay-per-view.
No.
Well, Steven,
When we talk
you're
about
wrong.
production, you talk about story going into it, and you talk about was the pay-per-view successful? Because like when we're grading ECW, like whether something was successful, are we taking into consideration, like, do we actually consider a pay-per-view where the ring kept breaking? So like you had one of the female wrestlers stripping. I mean, that's one of their most iconic things that they've ever done, but I wouldn't call that successful. And ECW fans will know what I'm talking about. I can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah, you're
That one
muted.
gets a 6.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, there he goes.
There you go.
6.
That one before it gets a 6. I don't know. I'm sorry, Chuck. Sorry for interrupting, Chuck. Go ahead.
Dude, I don't really. You guys can interrupt me all you want. I give it I'm with Tiro on it. As much as I did like it, I give it a 7. Get out of here. Can we block out Steven? I'm just gonna put like a piece of paper so I don't have to look at him and his 6 fingers up in the air. I give it a 7. It was entertaining. Now he's giving me 2.
2? A 2 creamy Kramers?
I don't know. Where's that 4?
That's
4
what's with the
creamy
wings?
Kramers?
What's with the wings? What is this? No, I give it a 7. It was a solid show. I enjoyed it. I liked going back watching it. Some of it was better than others. I wish they would have had that opening match on it as well. That would have been nice to see. I mean, you can probably go back online and find it somewhere, but yeah, I do wish they would have had that on it. But like I said, the Taz Bam Bam match I loved. The tag match I loved. The first match I really liked. The Candido match, Steven, you can shake your head all you want. You know you're wrong. But yeah, 7.
Can your internet drop out already like normal? Come on.
No, bro. No.
Oh, well, let's be honest here, though. He already changed his spot in the Zoom call, so, I get to edit that out.
I love it. I love it.
He's always been at the end of the list for me, so it didn't change very much on mine.
So I do believe that even though what Chris's opinions don't really match up with his Creamy Kramer rating, but I do believe that it is a 7. But since I am a very big ECW fan, I'm going to give it an extra number. And we're gonna say 8 Creamy Kramers.
There you go.
Out of 10 Creamy Kramers.
I like it. And Steven can keep shaking his head down there in the corner.
Look, Chrome Dumb. I don't want to hear it.
I love how somehow I was able to like deflect.
Yeah, I know.
It totally started with hatred towards me, and I deflected it to Steven. Aha!
have to go with 6. Sorry, fellas. Well, it's all good. Again, I'm giving extra points to ECW because it's ECW. And, you know,
There's
it
no
deserves
wrong answer.
it deserves love. It deserves love. And
We're 4 schmucks sitting in rooms talking about wrestling that happened 22 years ago, giving it grades.
I'm
You don't have
actually
to listen to us.
I'm actually a schmo. I'm not a schmuck.
You're not a
So
schmucklack. You're not on the schmucklack family?
I'm a Joe schmo,
You're a
not
Joe
a
schmo,
Randy.
okay.
Not a Randy schmucklack. So
my.
that's it. Those are the grades. They're set in stone. There will be a quiz later. Not really, but we do have a list of pay-per-views that we will have people voting on eventually. That being said, and you can stop talking trash about me in chat. That being said, next week is probably going to be a little bit different. I'm going to throw out what is probably going to happen. Don't take this totally to heart because we should be able to coordinate this, but I still got to talk to the gentleman who will be joining us. So online, JC Vega had tweeted something about how
the uprising champion of Elevate Pro down in Louisiana.
He had tweeted something about how when he was a kid, he used to want to come out to Jump by Crisscross. And I couldn't help myself. And I replied to the tweet because it was like, I've always wanted to do this topic. I have always wanted. So the plan is the next time we record is going to be a podcast about our top 3 wrestling intros that have actually been used. The song, and it can either be a wrestling theme or just a song. Maybe it was never even used, but just a song that as a kid you always wanted to come into. And then the last one is a song that is absolutely ridiculous, that it's not a wrestling intro. And I don't know how many of the boys are going to be on the podcast, but I asked JC Vega if he wanted to join. He said he would like to, so we have to coordinate that out. And that will be the topic.
More than likely, you will not see this beautiful face. Jump. You will not see this beautiful face, but you'll probably hear my voice. I'll just take a seat back so that JC can have, upfront camera, and I'll play moderator, and I'll mess with the people in the chat. We'll yell at Jimmy the whole time.
You got to come up with your answers, though, Chris.
Oh, my answers have been submitted.
He's got them already.
-1. I think there's one that you haven't.
I need one more.
But so that being said, I've given that homework to all the bald monkeys. Everybody's been thinking about. The only one that I know for sure is I know the #1 wrestling theme song of all time, easy peasy lemon squeezy, and I know that Chuck's favorite band has a song that I'm just like, this was born for wrestling, and it's ridiculous that it's never been used before, and that's all I'll give away.
They have a few,
but that one is like the ultimate, in my opinion. It's perfect.
That's the one I'm missing. I'm missing the one where it's like it should have been. So I'll work on that. But all my other homework's in.
Yeah. But that's it. That's it for the podcast portion. I'm more than happy to sit on and chat with you guys about any questions that you might have, anything that has happened in wrestling that you might want to know our opinions on. I will stop recording, though. We will see you next time. That's for the recording.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Bald Monkeys. You can also catch our interviews on WrestleJoy.com. Watch any of our other interviews or our roundtable podcasts at YouTube. Just search for The Bald Monkeys. And listen to The Bald Monkeys podcast on Apple iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from.